"That's the wrong move," said the new cashier to the CEO moments before his $200M deal. "Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. The morning rush was in full swing at the downtown Coal Tower Cafe, the kind of place where suits ordered double espressos with eyes glued to their phones. Behind the counter, a new cashier named Lily Tran wiped her palms against her apron, nervous but determined. It was her second day on the job, and every beep of the register felt like a test she couldn't afford to fail. The pay barely covered her mom's medication, but it was one small step toward breathing room. The door chimed again. A man in a plain gray jacket stepped in, no name tag, no entourage. He looked ordinary, except for the quiet confidence in the way he moved. He ordered a black coffee, large, no sugar. When he reached for his card, the system froze for a split second. Lily frowned, double-checked the screen, then noticed his hand hesitating over the wrong button on the terminal. "That's the wrong move, sir," she said gently, leaning forward. The man looked up, surprised no one corrected him like that. His blue-gray eyes studied her, curious. "Excuse me? You pressed refund instead of confirm," she said, smiling apologetically. "The system won't charge you that way." She reached over and guided his finger to the right spot. The machine beeped. Approved. He blinked, then smiled faintly. "Good catch. Just doing my job," she replied, cheeks pink. She didn't know that the man she'd just corrected was Ethan Cole, the very CEO whose name was printed on the building outside, watching his staff incognito before a $200 million merger. To her, he was just another customer trying not to spill coffee. But to him, she was something different, unexpectedly honest, unpolished, real. "You're new here?" he asked, his tone lighter now. "Second day," Lily said, still figuring things out. "Seems like you already have." He lifted his cup in a quiet toast and left, the door swinging shut behind him. Lily exhaled, not knowing she'd just said the words that would replay in his mind hours later, right before he signed the most critical deal of his career. Somewhere on the 50th floor, surrounded by polished advisors and million-dollar smiles, Ethan would look down at the receipt she'd handed him, where she'd scribbled a tiny note under the total. "Right move, done you right reason." He didn't know why, but it hit him harder than any market analysis. Maybe, just maybe, the girl behind the counter had just told him everything he'd forgotten about what truly mattered. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the glass walls of Coal Tower, cutting sharp reflections across the marble floor. Ethan Cole sat in his office, high above the city, staring at the coffee receipt on his desk. The words written in blue pen, "Right move equals right reason," seemed to echo louder than the hum of the skyline below. His assistant, Marissa, knocked softly. "Sir, the board meeting starts in 15. Ethan nodded but did not move. He kept thinking about the girl at the cafe. No pretense, no filters, just honesty. He wondered how long it had been since someone spoke to him like that without calculating what they might gain. Downstairs, Lily was finishing her morning shift, wiping counters, counting bills, unaware that the man she corrected yesterday was the owner of the entire building. Her coworker Jenna nudged her. "You look distracted. Still thinking about that guy from yesterday?" Lily smiled shyly. "He just seemed different, like he actually listened." Jenna laughed. "You need to find a man who listens and tips well." Lily rolled her eyes and went back to cleaning, but deep inside she could not shake the feeling that she had met someone important, though she could not explain why. That afternoon, a sleek black car stopped in front of the cafe. A man in a suit stepped out, not Ethan, but his head of HR. He handed the manager an envelope and quietly left. Inside was a simple note. "Employee Lily Tran temporary reassignment. Report to the Cole Foundation, floor 28, tomorrow morning." The manager's eyebrows shot up. "Lily, this says you've been transferred upstairs. Did you apply for something?" Lily blinked. "No. Is that a mistake?" He shrugged. "Apparently not. Congratulations, I guess." That night, Lily sat on her small couch in her tiny studio apartment, holding the letter, torn between excitement and fear. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe someone noticed her customer service. Or maybe it was a trap. Still, she ironed her best shirt, packed her old sketchbook into her tote for luck, and set her alarm. Morning came early. She rode the elevator to the 28th floor, her heart racing with every beep. When the doors opened, sunlight poured through an open workspace filled with plants and warm wood. The Cole Foundation sign gleamed on the wall. A woman greeted her with a smile. "You must be Lily. Mr. Cole will see you shortly." Lily froze. "Mr. Cole? As in Ethan Cole?" The woman nodded. Lily's stomach flipped. Before she could react, the glass door opened, and the man from the caf stepped out, no gray jacket this time, but a tailored suit. Same eyes, same calm voice. "Good morning, Lily," she stammered. You are the CEO?" He smiled faintly. "I prefer Ethan." Her mind raced. Every polite sentence she had ever rehearsed evaporated. "I did not know." "I am so sorry if he raised a hand." "Do not apologize. You were right." He held up the receipt she had written on. "The right move, the right reason. You reminded me of that when I needed it most." Lily blinked, unsure if this was real. "Sir, why am I here?" Ethan gestured to a small office overlooking the city. "Because I need someone honest enough to tell me when I am wrong. The foundation is starting a new project for community outreach. I think you would be perfect to help us build it." Lily's throat tightened. "Me? But I am not qualified for that." "You are," he said softly. "You see people, Lily. That is something you cannot teach." For a moment, the world seemed to pause. She looked at the skyline, then back at him, unsure whether to laugh or cry. "I do not know what to say." "Then just say yes," Ethan replied. She smiled, nervous but sincere. "Yes." As he left the room to let her settle in, Lily looked down at the polished desk before her. A new nameplate waited, engraved simply, "Lily Tran, Project Assistant, Cole Foundation." The same words kept circling in her mind: right move, right reason. And for the first time in years, she felt like she was finally making both. Days at the Cole Foundation moved differently, slower somehow, filled with the soft hum of printers and the scent of fresh coffee that Lily now brewed for the entire office. It had been 2 weeks since her unexpected transfer, and she was still waiting to wake up from what felt like an impossible dream. Every morning she arrived early, her badge swinging nervously from her neck, determined not to mess up. She spent hours organizing donation reports, answering calls, and learning how the foundation worked. It was not glamorous, but it mattered. She could see it in the photos on the walls: smiling kids, rebuilt homes, community kitchens. Sometimes, when no one was watching, she touched those frames, whispering, "Maybe I can help too." Ethan often passed her desk quietly, stopping only to ask small questions. "How is the workload?" Or, "Have you eaten today?" The first time he said that, she almost spilled her coffee. No boss had ever asked her that before. "I am fine," she would answer quickly, though he always noticed the fatigue behind her smile. One afternoon, as she sorted through old project files, she found a box labeled Community Renewal Initiative. Inside were photos of abandoned lots, faded plans, and a proposal with a red stamp. On hold. She walked into Ethan's office, hesitating by the door. "Mr. Cole, what happened to this project?" He looked up from his laptop. "Budget cuts. We had to prioritize investor-backed campaigns." Lily frowned. "But this could help hundreds of families." Ethan studied her for a long moment, then leaned back. "It was not a profitable move." "Maybe not," she said softly, "but it would have been the right move." The room went quiet. Ethan stared at her, the echo of her words sinking deep. He had built an empire by chasing numbers, not faces, yet somehow this young woman from a coffee counter made him question all of it. "Reopen it," he said suddenly. Lily blinked. "Excuse me?" "The Community Renewal Initiative. Start fresh. You will lead the preliminary planning." Her eyes widened. "Me? I am not qualified to." "Neither was I when I started," he interrupted gently. "You have instincts money cannot buy." She nodded slowly, unsure whether to be terrified or grateful. The following weeks became a blur of phone calls, blueprints, and late nights. Lily visited neighborhoods, spoke with local volunteers, took notes in her worn sketchbook. Ethan began accompanying her on site visits, ditching his tailored suit for rolled sleeves and sneakers. To everyone's surprise, the CEO worked beside his team, hammering fences, listening to stories, learning how to see people again. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the half-finished playground, Ethan sat on a bench beside Lily, his hands dusty. "You were right," he said quietly. "About what?" she asked, brushing dirt from her jeans. "About the right move. I have spent years making the smart move, the safe move. None of it ever felt this real." She smiled. Because this is not about profit. It is about people. He nodded, eyes distant, as if seeing his life from a new height. You remind me of what I forgot. My father used to run a small hardware store. He said success means nothing if you cannot look your employees in the eye. Somewhere along the line, I lost that. Lily looked at him, the evening light catching the kindness returning to his expression. Then maybe you are finding it again. For a long moment, they sat in silence, the sound of laughter from volunteers echoing in the distance. Ethan turned to her. Lily, when this project is done, I want you to present it to the board. They need to hear from someone who remembers why we started. Her eyes widened. You mean me? In front of everyone? He smiled. Yes. You earned it. Lily's heart pounded with a mix of fear and pride. She nodded slowly. I will try. No, he said, standing up and offering her a hand. You will do it. Because you are the right move, Lily. She took his hand, the city lights flickering behind them, and for the first time since she started, she no longer felt like a cashier pretending to belong. She was exactly where she was meant to be. The night before the board presentation, the Cole Foundation building was almost empty. Most employees had gone home hours ago, but one office light still glowed on the 28th floor. Lily sat at her desk surrounded by sketches, project reports, and coffee cups. Her eyes were tired, but her spirit was steady. Tomorrow, she would present the Community Renewal Initiative, the same project she had found in a dusty box weeks ago. It was her first time standing in front of executives, investors, and the board of directors. Her hands trembled slightly as she rehearsed the lines under her breath. Right move, right reason, she whispered, a quiet mantra that had carried her this far. A gentle knock interrupted her thoughts. Ethan stood in the doorway, jacket slung over his arm. You are still here, he said softly. She smiled nervously. Could not sleep. I keep thinking about tomorrow. He walked closer, placing a cup of tea on her desk. Chamomile. My assistant swears it helps with nerves. She laughed lightly. Thank you. I might need 10 of these. He leaned on the edge of the desk, studying her slides on the screen. It looks incredible, Lily. The board will love it. She shook her head. They will love the numbers. I just hope they listen to the stories behind them. Ethan's eyes softened. They will, if you speak from the same heart that wrote this proposal. She glanced up at him, surprised by the warmth in his tone. Why do you believe in me so much? He hesitated. Because you remind me of the part of myself that I used to believe in. For a moment, silence stretched between them, filled only by the faint buzz of the city lights outside. He cleared his throat, straightening his tie. Get some rest, Lily. Tomorrow you lead the room. I will be there. The next morning, the conference hall was bright and intimidating. Rows of chairs faced a massive screen that displayed the words, The Community Renewal Initiative. Lily stood at the front, clutching her notes, her pulse hammering in her ears. Ethan sat near the head of the table, expression calm but eyes quietly encouraging. The chairman began, Miss Tran, the floor is yours. Lily took a slow breath and began to speak. Her voice was shaky at first, but then something shifted. As she described the people she met, the broken playgrounds, and the laughter of children in neighborhoods reborn, her nerves melted away. The board listened, not just to her words, but to the conviction behind them. Ethan watched her closely, pride flickering across his face. When she finished, the room was silent for a moment, then came applause. Genuine applause. The chairman nodded. This proposal is different. It feels alive. Another member added, If we can fund it at this scale, it could redefine our outreach model. Ethan stood, smiling. Then let us do it. Effective immediately. The motion passed unanimously. After the meeting, Lily stepped into the corridor, barely able to breathe. Ethan followed her out, eyes shining. You did it. She laughed, a tear slipping down her cheek. We did it. He shook his head. No, Lily, you led it. You changed how they see this company. She looked at him, overwhelmed. I just wanted them to care. And now they do, he said. They stood in the hallway, the sound of distant chatter fading. For the first time, Ethan reached out and gently brushed a tear from her cheek. You know, he said softly, I used to think leadership was about control. You showed me it is about trust. She smiled through her tears. And kindness. He nodded. Yes, kindness. That evening, as they watched volunteers breaking ground on the first renewal site, Lily handed Ethan a new receipt. On it, she had written the same words he had never forgotten. Right move equals right reason. But this time she added one more line underneath. and the right people make it possible. He looked at her, the corner of his mouth lifting into a quiet smile. You have no idea how right you are. Weeks passed after the presentation, and the Community Renewal Initiative began to take shape across the city. Vacant lots turned into gardens, cracked sidewalks gave way to bright murals, and families who had once lost hope were smiling again. Lily had become the heart of the project. She was in the field every day, talking with residents, checking progress, and making sure every dollar of the foundation's funding reached the right hands. The staff adored her, volunteers followed her lead, and even the local press started calling her the face of the foundation. Ethan watched all of it unfold from a quiet distance. He still came to the sites, sometimes in work boots, sometimes in suits, but always with the same look, one that carried both admiration and something deeper he could not name. One evening, after a long day at the main project site, Lily stood by the fence as the sun dipped below the horizon. Ethan approached, carrying 2 paper cups of coffee. You should sit for a moment, he said. You have been running since sunrise. She smiled, accepting the cup. Says the man who never takes a day off. He chuckled. Touch. They stood side by side, watching children play among the new swings. For a long time, neither spoke. Then Ethan said quietly, You know, I almost sold this property years ago. Developers wanted to turn it into high-end apartments. They offered a fortune. And now? She asked. He took a sip of coffee, the breeze ruffling his hair. Now I think this is worth more than any deal I have ever signed. Lily looked at him, unsure whether he meant the project or something else. She felt her heart skip in a way that frightened her. You changed more than this place, Ethan, she said softly. You changed how people see this company, and maybe how they see hope. He turned toward her. It was never me, Lily. It was you. Their eyes met for a brief, fragile second before her phone buzzed. She glanced down and frowned. It is the supply coordinator. There is a problem with the budget numbers. Ethan's smile faded. What kind of problem? He says some invoices are missing. The accountant thinks someone might be redirecting funds. Within hours, the office was alive with tension. Lily stayed late going through the spreadsheets, her fingers trembling as she cross-checked every transaction. Ethan joined her, rolling up his sleeves. Let me help. Together they went line by line until Lily froze. Here, she whispered, these payments. They are duplicated. Someone rerouted them through a shell vendor. Ethan's jaw tightened. Who approved this? The next morning, an internal review confirmed their fears. A mid-level manager had been siphoning charity funds for months. The board was furious. Investors panicked, and the headlines spread fast. Fraud at the Cole Foundation flashed across every business network. In the chaos, someone leaked that Lily had signed several of the processed invoices. She was summoned to a board hearing that afternoon. Miss Tran, one member said coldly, you authorized transactions that are now under investigation. Can you explain that? Lily's throat went dry. I did not know they were fake. The manager said it was routine. I checked what I could. The chairman's voice was sharp. That may be true, but the optics are bad. We need accountability. Ethan stepped forward. If you are looking for accountability, look at me, he said firmly. She acted under my supervision. I approved her hiring, her workload, and every project she touched. The room fell silent. You cannot take the blame, Ethan, Lily whispered, her voice cracking. This was my responsibility. He turned to her, eyes steady. And I am your leader. Leaders do not abandon their people when things get difficult. The chairman sighed. This will take time to investigate. Until then, Miss Tran, we will have to suspend you. The words hit her like a blow. She nodded, her face pale but composed. As she gathered her things, Ethan caught her at the door. I will fix this, he said quietly. Do you trust me? She hesitated, eyes shimmering. I want to. Then she walked away, leaving him alone in the corridor, holding the coffee cup she had left behind. That night, Ethan stared out over the city lights from his penthouse window, the receipt still tucked in his wallet. The words stared back at him, right move equals right reason, and for the first time in years, he did not know which move was right at all. Days turned into a week, and the foundation office felt strangely hollow without Lily's laughter echoing through the halls. The staff missed her calm presence. The volunteers asked where she had gone, and Ethan found himself restless, consumed by guilt and determination. He spent every spare moment reviewing files, cross-referencing signatures, and interrogating every department head. The more he dug, the clearer it became that Lily had been set up. Someone had used her access to mask their own corruption. One night, long after midnight, He was in his office surrounded by papers when he found a clued a digital trail that led back to the same manager they had suspected, but it went deeper. The stolen funds were rerouted to a private consulting firm tied to one of the board members. Ethan leaned back in disbelief, anger simmering beneath his composure. "They framed her," he muttered. The next morning, he called his legal team. "I want everything documented, every payment, every email, quietly." Meanwhile, Lily tried to keep herself together. Without her job, the apartment bills piled up fast. She avoided watching the news, but every headline carried her name. Suspended foundation employee under investigation. She walked the city streets, resume in hand, but doors closed the moment employers recognized her. One afternoon she stopped by the community site. The playground was finished now, full of children laughing, parents chatting on new benches. A volunteer spotted her. "Miss Tran, we miss you here." Lily forced a smile. "I'm just visiting. You all did such an amazing job." As she turned to leave, she saw a small plaque on the fence. "Dedicated to those who believe in doing the right thing." Her chest tightened. She whispered to herself, "Right move, right reason," and for the first time it hurt to say. 2 days later, Ethan requested an emergency board meeting. The room buzzed with unease. The same executives who had praised Lily weeks ago now avoided eye contact. Ethan stood at the head of the table, calm but fierce. "I have spent the last week investigating the alleged embezzlement," he began, "and I found the truth." He clicked a button, and a series of documents flashed onto the screen: emails, invoices, transfer logs. The real culprit is not Lily Tran. The fraud originated from an internal partnership managed by Richard Owens, your firm, Mr. Owens. The accused board member stiffened. "That is ridiculous. You have no proof." Ethan's voice was steady. "Actually, I do. I traced the bank account directly to your company. You funneled donations through a dummy vendor and pinned it on her to cover your trail." Murmurs erupted around the room. Owens paled. "This is absurd. You cannot. Security already has your resignation letter waiting," Ethan interrupted coldly. "If you refuse, the authorities will receive everything I just presented." The man's face crumbled. He grabbed his briefcase and left without another word. When the room fell silent again, Ethan exhaled. Lily Tran was innocent. Effective immediately, she is reinstated with full honors and a personal apology from this board. No one argued. The next morning, Ethan drove across the city until he reached the small apartment complex where she lived. He climbed the worn stairs, knocked on her door, and waited. Lily opened it slowly, eyes widening. "Ethan?" He smiled softly. "You were right again. About everything. The investigation is over. They found the real culprit." She blinked, disbelief turning into relief. "You cleared my name?" "No," he said gently. "The truth did." She let out a shaky laugh that turned into tears. "I thought it was over. I thought I ruined everything." He shook his head. "You built something that cannot be ruined by lies. The city still stands because of you." She wiped her face, still trembling. "I do not know what to say." "Say you will come back," he replied. "We need you, Lily. I need you." For a long moment she just stared at him. Then she smiled through her tears. "All right," she whispered. "One condition. No more secrets." Ethan nodded. "Agreed." As they walked down the narrow hallway, sunlight spilled through the windows. For the first time in weeks, Lily felt light again. The storm was clearing, and maybe, just maybe, something new was beginning. When Lily returned to the Cole Foundation, the atmosphere was different. The whispers stopped, the glances softened, and people stood to greet her when she walked in. A bouquet of wildflowers sat on her desk with a small note that simply said, "Welcome home." She smiled when she saw the signature Ethan. He was waiting in his office when she knocked. "Come in," he said, looking up from a stack of reports. "It feels strange being back," she admitted, stepping inside. "Strange but good." Ethan smiled. "You deserve to be here, Lily. You were never the problem, you were the reason this place still has a soul." She laughed softly, shaking her head. "You always know what to say." "Only when it is true," he replied. Over the next few days, things began to fall back into rhythm. The news coverage shifted quickly once the real culprit was exposed. The headlines that once accused her now praised her courage. "Foundation employee vindicated." After exposing fraud, read one, and Ethan made sure her name appeared at the top of every press release. Still, Lily kept her focus on the work, not the attention. She spent long hours reviewing grant proposals and updating the community programs that had stalled during her suspension. Ethan often joined her late in the evenings, bringing coffee and quiet company. "Do you ever sleep?" she teased one night, looking up from her laptop. He chuckled. "Not when there is work to do." "You mean not when there is someone else to take care of?" she said, glancing at him knowingly. He paused, realizing how much that was true. Maybe both. As the weeks passed, the bond between them deepened into something that neither could ignore. There was no grand confession, no dramatic moment, just small gestures that grew heavier with meaning. A look across a conference table, a laugh shared over coffee, the way he always walked her to the elevator at the end of the night. One Friday evening, after a long board review, Ethan asked quietly, "Walk with me?" They stepped out onto the rooftop terrace, overlooking the city. The air was cool, the skyline glowing like scattered jewels. "When I first built this place," Ethan said, leaning on the railing, "I thought success would make me feel complete, but it just made the silence louder." Lily looked at him. "And now I hear laughter downstairs. I see people helping each other again. And it started because one person dared to tell me I was wrong." She blushed. "That was not exactly polite of me." "It was exactly what I needed," he said. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The city lights flickered below, reflecting in her eyes. "You taught me something, Lily," Ethan continued. "You taught me that leadership without compassion is just control. You reminded me what humanity feels like." She swallowed, her voice barely above a whisper. "And you reminded me that kindness still matters in a world that often forgets it." He smiled faintly. "Then I guess we are even." The silence that followed was soft, almost peaceful. He turned to face her fully, his voice lower now. "You know, after everything, I still have not thanked you properly." "You do not need to," she said quickly. "I was just doing what was right." "Exactly," he said. "That is why I want to show you what comes next." The next morning, when Lily arrived at the office, the staff gathered in the lobby. Ethan stood by a covered sign, his eyes finding hers. "Lily," he said, "this project would not exist without you. So from today, this center will carry your name." He pulled the cloth away to reveal the plaque, the Lily Tran Community Renewal Center. The room erupted in applause. Lily froze, stunned, tears filling her eyes. "Ethan, I cannot—" "You already did," he interrupted gently. "You gave this place its heart." She covered her mouth, overwhelmed. "You turned a mistake into a miracle," he said quietly. "And I just wanted the world to remember that." As the applause filled the room, Lily looked at him through tears. "You really are impossible," she whispered. Ethan smiled softly. "Only when I am doing the right thing." The weeks that followed the grand reveal of the Lily Tran Community Renewal Center were filled with warmth, laughter, and endless work. The Foundation's projects expanded across the state, gaining recognition far beyond what anyone had imagined. Reporters called it a revolution of compassion, and donors flooded in wanting to be part of something real. But to Lily, the greatest reward was walking through the neighborhoods and seeing children playing where broken fences used to stand. One evening, she stood outside the new community hall, the glow of the lights reflecting off her badge. A soft voice behind her said, "It still amazes me how one idea can rebuild so many lives." She turned and smiled. "Ethan, I thought you went home." He shook his head. "Home is wherever the work is these days." They walked side by side down the path lined with lanterns. The laughter of families echoed around them. "I sometimes forget what this felt like," Ethan said quietly. "Being surrounded by people, not numbers." "You built it," Lily said gently. "You just needed to remember why." He looked at her for a long moment. "You have no idea how much you changed me." She laughed softly. "I could say the same thing." They stopped near the playground where a little girl handed them paper flowers. "Here, mister, for helping our town." Ethan crouched down, accepting the flower with a smile. "Thank you. I will keep it forever." As they watched the child run off, Lily said, "That is why we do this. That is why it matters." He nodded. "It matters because people like you remind others what kindness looks like." Days passed, and their bond grew stronger, built on trust and something deeper neither dared to name. But one afternoon, a letter arrived at the foundation. Ethan read it in silence before calling Lily into his office. "We received an acquisition offer," he said, sliding the letter toward her. "A tech conglomerate wants to buy out Cole Enterprises. They claim it will help expand the foundation globally." Lily frowned. "That sounds incredible. So what is the problem?" He exhaled slowly. If I sell, the foundation becomes theirs. They could change everything, its purpose, its heart. But if I refuse, the board might see me as standing in the way of progress. She studied him for a moment. Then you already know what the right move is. He gave a small laugh. You always make it sound simple. It is not simple, she said, but it is clear. Do what protects the people, not the profits. Ethan leaned back, watching her, the weight of every decision visible in his eyes. What would I do without you? Probably sell your soul for another merger, she teased. He laughed, shaking his head. You are probably right. That night, Ethan made his choice. At the next board meeting, he stood and addressed the room. I am declining the offer, he announced firmly. The Cole Foundation will remain independent and people-centered. The board murmured in surprise. One executive protested. That is a $200 million loss, Ethan. No, he said, his voice calm. It is a $200 million investment in integrity. The decision stunned the business world. Articles debated whether Ethan Cole had lost his mind or found his conscience. When Lily read the headlines, she smiled to herself. Later that week, she found him back at the cafe where they had first met. He was seated at the same table, holding a cup of black coffee, no sugar, just as before. She walked over quietly. Divu? She said. He looked up smiling. Except this time, I am not the one making the wrong move. She laughed and sat across from him. So what now, Mr. Cole? Now, he said softly, we start something new, together. She looked at him, realizing what he meant, and her heart raced. Are you sure about that? He smiled. Completely. It is the right move for the right reason. Outside, the city buzzed with life. But inside that small cafe, time seemed to slow. Two people who had met by chance sat across from each other again. Not by accident, but by choice. And for the first time, neither of them felt lost. They had found something worth keeping: truth, purpose, and each other. 6 months later, the Cole Foundation was unrecognizable. What had started as a local initiative had grown into a national movement. Schools partnered with them, companies volunteered, and ordinary people donated time and money to keep the renewal projects alive. Everywhere Lily went, she saw the impact of their work: fresh-painted buildings, community gardens blooming in old lots, children laughing in parks that used to be empty. She often thought back to that first day at the cafe when she had corrected a stranger's mistake without knowing who he was. It all felt like a lifetime ago. One bright spring morning, Ethan invited her to the new headquarters of the foundation, a glass building overlooking the river. When she walked inside, the walls were covered with photos before and after shots of every neighborhood they had rebuilt. It is beautiful, she whispered. It is ours, Ethan said, walking beside her. Every piece of it. They stopped in front of a framed newspaper article titled, "The Man Who Chose Kindness, Over $200 million." Lily laughed softly. You really made the news that day. He shrugged with a smile. I did not care about the headline. I cared that the people who worked here could be proud again. She looked at him, realizing how far he had come. The once distant, guarded CEO now spoke with warmth and humility. He had learned to lead with heart instead of power. You changed everything, she said. No, he replied gently. You did. You showed me that the right move is never about profit, is about purpose. As they walked toward the rooftop terrace, the staff gathered quietly behind them. A stage had been set up, and a small crowd waited. Ethan turned to her. We are dedicating this rooftop garden today, he said, his tone soft but deliberate. And there is something I want to say in front of everyone. Before Lily could respond, he stepped to the microphone. When I met Lily Tran, he began, I was a man obsessed with numbers and deals. I thought leadership was about control, but she reminded me that leadership is about service, and love is the only currency that never loses value. The crowd smiled. Lily stood frozen, her hands clasped tightly. This foundation stands because one person dared to be honest when everyone else stayed silent, Ethan continued. She reminded me that doing the right thing may cost something, but it gives everything back. He turned toward her, his voice softening. Lily, from the first day we met, you changed how I saw the world. You changed how I saw myself. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. It was the coffee receipt from that very first morning. You wrote this, he said. Right move equals right reason. I have carried it every day since. And today I want to add one more line. He unfolded it, revealing new words written beneath hers. Right heart equals forever. The audience gasped softly as Ethan went down on one knee. Lily Tran, will you make the right move with me for life? Tears welled in her eyes, her hands trembling. She laughed through them. Ethan Cole, that might be the best business proposal you have ever made. The crowd burst into applause as she said the word everyone had been waiting for. Yes. Ethan slipped a simple silver ring onto her finger, and the rooftop erupted in cheers. Volunteers, staff, and friends clapped and shouted her name. The sunlight caught the river below, reflecting upward like gold. Lily looked at Ethan, her voice steady. You know what this means, right? That we did the impossible? He said. No, she smiled. That we finally made the right move for the right reason. Months later, they held a small wedding ceremony in the same garden they had once built together. No luxury, no extravagance, just laughter, music, and love. When the guests lifted their glasses, Ethan held hers and whispered, "To the girl who taught me everything money could never buy." She smiled, leaning close. To the man who finally listened. And as the night settled over the city, the lights of the Cole Foundation glowed across the skylines, a reminder that sometimes a single act of honesty can change the course of two lives, and, perhaps, an entire world.